Hi, my name is Dr. Susan Cheyne, and I'm the Vice Chair of the IUCN section on small apes, the gibbons behind me. And I'm here to answer your questions. You've sent them in on social media, and I'm here to help, I hope. So I've worked with gibbons for 25 years in rescue centres and zoos and studying them in the wild. So I hope that experience qualifies me to answer some of your questions. Of course, I work with lots and lots of other gibbon experts, and so I learn from them. So yeah, here to answer your questions. A little bit more about me. I'm from Scotland. I love paddleboarding and wild swimming when I'm not running around the jungle studying gibbons. And I'm really excited to see what questions that you want answered. So thanks for sending them. I'd like to give a really detailed scientific answer, but to be honest, I fell in love with them. I thought they were interesting, exciting. I didn't really know much about them until I went to Thailand and volunteered with them and understood how threatened they were, how much they were being impacted and still are by the pet trade. And they're beautiful. They're the singing, swinging ape. And they're still not very well understood. So, or many people don't know about them. So, yeah, I fell in love with them and I wanted to help. It really is that simple. Hi. So I had a question about what it's like to follow gibbons in the wild, like Chocolate behind me here, who is a wild gibbon from Indonesia. Well, gosh, gibbons live in 11 different countries in Southeast Asia. So the forest and the ground, the terrain can be really quite different. I have worked in swamps, which are really flat. I've worked up in the mountains, mostly down in Indonesia, a little bit in Thailand as well. But the temperature can change, the climate can change, the weather. So it really depends on where you go. But I'll tell you one thing, they're long days because gibbons get up early. They get up at maybe 4:30 in the morning, and they go to sleep in their sleeping trees around about maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're long days. And of course, with their big long arms, they're really well adapted to being up in the trees. Humans, not so much. So it can be quite challenging and tiring. You've got to be fit physically and mentally. And you've got to have someone on your team with you that you want to spend the whole day with because it's difficult. You've got to make sure that you can keep up with the animals, but it's incredibly rewarding to see their behavior in the wild when they let us into their world and see what they do. So it's tough, but it's great fun. See, really good question. So gibbons are apes, like humans, like orangutans, gorillas, bonobos, and chimpanzees. And that means we've got what's called trichromatic vision. We can see in the three main colors of the spectrum. So yes, some humans are colorblind, and that means they can't see all colors, sometimes reds and greens. But most times gibbons definitely can see in all the colors. So they can identify different fruits, green fruits, red fruits, blue fruits. They can identify different colors of green in the leaves. So they can look at whether a leaf is an older leaf, maybe full of tannins, so not so great to eat, or a younger leaf that might be easier to digest. So yeah, gibbons have great vision, just like humans. Well, that's a really great question. So they're very territorial, which means they know where they are in the forest. They've got an area of forest that they defend against other gibbon groups and other animals. And they've got a really good memory. So they know where different trees are, but not just where the trees are, when those trees are going to be producing something the gibbons can eat. And they'll come back to the same trees at the same time every year because they know the fruiting patterns, but also because they live in a family group, they've got that advantage of group knowledge. So the adult male and female know where to go within the territory. They know their territorial boundaries. And they set those boundaries a lot of the time by singing. And that's a question that we'll come on to later. But yeah, they've got what we call a mental map of their territory. So they know where and when to find food and where and when to defend their territory. Well, you can see here A young gibbon, a young yellow-cheeked gibbon, demonstrating brachiating. I mean, it's basically arm swinging. It's how gibbons get around. It's their main form of locomotion or travel, of how they swing through the trees. And yeah, it's a form of locomotion up in the trees. So it's swinging arm to arm. Now, gibbons can go pretty fast. So sometimes when they're swinging, they actually swing so quickly that they leave the tree completely and do a short bit of, I call flying, before they grab onto another branch and swing. So it's an underarm swinging. Some people might have done this or maybe still do this in gyms or on bars as kids. And it's pretty much the same, although gibbons have better shoulder joints than humans do because they're specially adapted to do this brachiation. And they've got really strong arms as well so that they can do this well. And you can see that here. Goodness, yes. Well, like I said, they do live in family groups. If you've watched the previous videos, they live in family groups. Normally, one adult male, one adult female, although the more we learn, the more we realize this is a little bit flexible. And about 1 to 3 offspring, although again, this can vary. But that's the kind of basic family units, and they defend their territory pretty rigorously. They'll fight off other gibbons. They'll fight off other animals as well sometimes. And it can get a little bit physical, the fighting. There's certainly lots of chasing, lots of singing and calling at each other. And depending on the forest, get different gibbon species, remember there are 20, can live at different densities. That means a different number of groups of animals in a different area of forest. And so sometimes the number of gibbons in a particular forest depends on how often they sing, or maybe even how often they meet each other. And that means how often there might be conflict. But one of the advantages of having these morning calls is that each group can tell the other groups where they are, where their territory is. So they don't have conflict that often, sorry. But yes, I mean, it does happen. They do encounter each other at the edges of their territories where there might be overlap and competition for different feeding trees. So here we've got a Hylobates moloch, or a Javan gibbon from the island of Java in Indonesia. And we've had a question about dominancy in gibbons. I think that we haven't really seen it, to be honest. Now, one of the reasons is that male and female gibbons are, they're not really that different in size. Unlike, say, for example, a gorilla, say a silverback gorilla, who's a male, and a female, they're really different in size. So they're what we call sexually dimorphic. Gibbons aren't. They're pretty much the same size, males and females. So you don't tend to see really a difference in dominance. I think what we do see that we're still starting to understand is a difference in how the gibbons contribute to the group. So maybe the male does a little bit more of the territorial defense or patrolling, and the female perhaps takes a little bit more of a lead in deciding where they go to find the different fruiting trees that we spoke about in an earlier video. So yes, I think one of the other things we've got to remember with gibbons and many other wildlife is we've probably got a lot more questions than answers. So that's exciting. Gives us a lot of things that we can still go out and try and find out about these amazing animals. And the more we know, the better prepared we are to help conserve and protect them. In the wild, we do name our gibbons, but of course we don't call them because we don't want to interfere with their behavior in the wild. But certainly zoos and sanctuaries and rescue centers, and as I said, in the wild, we do name them. They have got personalities. They are individuals. And I would say certainly in zoo settings where the gibbons are not being prepared to return to the wild, their names probably are used, and I would be absolutely certain that they are aware of their names. If you think about it, if you've got a pet dog, that knows its name. Gibbons are very intelligent. They will definitely know their names. And it might even be helpful in a zoo setting to help with husbandry and welfare and training and looking after gibbons. However, I must stress that although we give them names, gibbons are not pets. They should never be kept as pets. It's illegal and it's not good for the gibbons. No primate should be kept as a pet. So we give them names, yes, because they are individuals, but they're not pets. And that's really important to remember. So I definitely think they do know their names, at least the ones in captivity. The ones in the wild, probably not, because we just don't interact with them like that. We want to stay away from them so we can understand their natural behavior without any interference from people. Well, I think they look pretty funny when they try and walk on two legs because they're really not adapted to do that. They've got nice long arms for swinging through the trees, and they can walk on two legs, you know, just like humans, but the bodies aren't really built for it. So they have a bit of a kind of wobble when they do it. And I think that's quite funny. They don't do it very often because it's not their most efficient way of doing it. But yeah, I think maybe the funniest thing is there's a gibbon walking on two legs. Just like I said, they're not really adapted for it. So they have to do quite a lot to keep their balance. So they have to keep their arms out quite wide to make sure that they stay upright. But they have got excellent balance. But I guess that would be it for me. So a great question is, how can you help gibbons? Well, um, always donating money to help projects out in the wild is a big help, but there are many things that you can do if you don't have money. You don't need to donate. And we've got lots and lots of ideas and tips on our SSA website, www.gibbons.asia. Nice and easy to remember. Some things you can do if you're in a gibbon habitat country, or maybe you go there on holiday. Don't have your photo taken with a gibbon if somebody offers it to you, maybe on the street or on the beach. These gibbons have been taken from the wild. And so they've lost their families and they're not necessarily being kept in great conditions. So please don't do that. Be a responsible tourist. That's a super thing that you can do to help. You can tell your friends and family about gibbons and get them to follow us on social media and go onto our website and learn about these amazing singing, swinging apes. Things you can do at home, because remember, we are all global. Think about recycling, thinking about reducing plastic. All of these things contribute to reasons why we get pollution. And think about maybe where you do your shopping when you buy things. Think about where the wood comes from. Think about understanding the ingredients, about where maybe the palm oil comes from. And like I said, anything you can do to tell people about these amazing apes really would be a big help. But we've got lots and lots of other information on our website. They have got problems from the pet trade and deforestation. And the more we know about them, the more that we can help protect them. So remember, 20 species in 11 different countries. That's a lot of gibbons to protect. And that's a challenge that we are willing to take on. So yeah, go on the website and see what you can learn about gibbons. And thank you. So I've been asked to do my best impression of a gibbon. Now, there are 20 species, and the males and females of each species sing a different song. So that's 40 different songs. I think that would be a bit too long. So I'm going to pick one. So this is the species that I've worked with most over the last 20 years, the Bornean white-bearded gibbon, or Hylobates albibarbus, that occurs on the island of Borneo and only in the Indonesian part. So, as I said, males and females have different calls. For this species, in my opinion, the female call is a bit more interesting. So here we go. You can find recordings of what the gibbons actually sound like on the SSA website if you don't want to listen to me. And remember, that's when the male joins in. And remember, this is often happening about 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. So if I hear that in the forest and I'm still in bed, I'm late for work. Hope you enjoyed. Well, I guess that's it for today from me. We can always answer your questions on social media, or you can send us an email, and you can get all the information on the SSA website, www.gibbons.asia, where you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can check out our Still in Progress YouTube channel. You can send us emails. You can find all the information you would like about gibbons. And if it's not there, then ask us. So thank you very much for sending in your questions. I've really enjoyed answering them. It's been great to see so many people wanting to engage with gibbons and understand more about these amazing small apes. Yeah, so don't forget to subscribe, join us, follow us, like us, tell your friends and family about us. And not just about us, of course. We're just the humans. Tell them about the gibbons, because they're the real stars of the show. Thank you.